So 1, active and visible sponsorship from the get-go, right? And every single 250 person who came through that door heard from that person's mouth why this is so important, why we're doing it, right? And then they got to go kind of process by process, end to end. And who do you think delivered those messages? Who were at those process booths? Who were the people talking? Team leaders, managers, you betcha. And so it was a lot, if not peers sometimes, right? Sometimes it was end users, right? So you think about the trust, right? I want someone I know. So we got the most credible, influential, trustworthy folks to be the presenters at those booths. And guess what? Those presenters at those booths, that in itself was an intervention. You've got to go talk to 250 peers. You better know what you're doing, right? You've got to be able to articulate what's changing. So even that part of the process, wow, right? And then we ended it after 10 booths, lots of great information. Each booth had some interactive thing. You made it fun, positive psychology. We asked them, where are you in the change curve, right? We're not going to hide this. We know you're going through a journey. That's okay, right? We had them do the same thing you guys did. We put, just for them, put little sticky dots, had a nice scatter plot. We had it by groups, so we sort of could start to segment, right? And it's self-identification. There's no right or wrong. Where do you think you are today based on the information you received? And I had a real good sense for we're starting to move this organization forward, right? Some of the information they got in there, I'm sure they didn't like. I'm positive they went, that sucks. And I'm sure they went, that's never going to work, right? But we started to get them down there and started to have those reactions. And this was all before training. This was all before training. So here's a really big concept I want you guys to think about. If you do training and you don't do activities here to increase awareness or increase understanding before training, you are training here. And your training event creates all the noise. So what do you think your return on investment is for that training event? When they're like, I had no flipping idea what this thing was. Are you kidding me? Am I going to lose my job, right? Your training, you might as well just retrain again, right? You've really lost your investment in training. You need to get folks engaged. You need to get them to pay attention. Training should start happening about here, right? Maybe here for some, but when you finally get them in a training environment, right, the big surprises should be out of the way. Has dropped, hasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, my speculation, one, is you can only involve so many people in the processes, right? You can only involve so many. So I think that's probably why it's dropped a bit. You just have more work after. Yeah, and that happens. So if you're up against a deadline and you haven't had time to do a lot of activities to get them prepared, you're just gonna have retraining, right? You just know that, build that into your plan. You're probably gonna have a lot more activities after to make sure folks understand what is actually happening, to make sure they're on that same wave. So there's just more, I always say you're either gonna do it once really well up front or twice after, right? And those are all choices. That's my approach. Yeah, I think the employee involvement, now, one, it still is a contributor to success, so it's still important, right? But I do think the reason it's sort of gone down over the past few years is because what they're seeing is you have to have a structured approach to get employees involved, right? There's got to be something, you can't just open it up to the masses. That's why I think it's fallen, only because now they're starting to see structured approach, making sure people are thinking through this curve has started to rise, because notice those weren't even in the equation when they first started looking at like dedicated resources. Structured approach wasn't even there the first 2 years. I think the other factor that's becoming important, and we talked about this a little bit, I think